The first thing Claire noticed was the smell, fresh paint, lemon cleaner, something floral simmering from the kitchen. The house looked brighter than she remembered, but in the wrong way, like a hotel trying to imitate a home. Her father opened the door, smiling too quickly, already talking before she stepped inside. Good timing. Dinner's almost ready. He kissed her forehead distractedly and disappeared toward the kitchen, where Diane laughed at something he said. Claire stood alone in the hallway. That was when she realized the wall had changed. For 20 years, the staircase had been crowded with uneven family photos, school portraits in cheap frames, vacation pictures sun-faded at the corners, her mother holding Claire at age 4 while both of them squinted into ocean wind. Now the wall was symmetrical, black frames, matching sizes. Diane's children smiled down from nearly every photograph. Graduation pictures, soccer uniforms, a Christmas portrait in coordinated sweaters. Claire kept walking slowly. The old piano picture was gone. The camping trip photo was gone. Even the tiny wallet-sized snapshot her father once kept near the living room lamp had disappeared. Not one image of her remained. From the kitchen, Diane called warmly, "Claire, can you grab wine glasses?" Her tone was normal, helpful. Domestic. Claire opened cabinets she no longer recognized. The glasses had been rearranged too. At dinner, everyone behaved carefully. Diane's son talked about graduate school applications. Her daughter discussed apartment hunting in Chicago. Her father kept filling silences with comments about renovations. "We repainted the guest room too," he said. "The whole house feels fresh now." Claire looked down at her plate. "Yes," she said, "it does." Nobody reacted, which somehow made it worse. That night in her apartment, she tried to explain the feeling to herself and failed. It sounded childish when reduced to words, upset over photographs. 32 years old and wounded by wall decor, but it wasn't really the pictures. It was the ease of it, the efficiency, as if removing her had been part of organizing the furniture. After that, she visited less often. At first, her father didn't notice. Then he noticed and misunderstood. "You're busy," he told her during one phone call. "That's adulthood." Claire almost laughed. Adulthood, apparently, was learning how quietly people could rearrange you. Diane remained perfectly polite whenever they met. That was the difficult part. No cruelty, no insults, just competence. She hosted holidays smoothly, remembered birthdays, sent group texts with smiling emojis, but every story she told seemed to begin after the wedding. "Our family loves that restaurant. We always spend Easter here. We started this tradition last year." Claire would sit there listening, feeling like someone attending rehearsals for her own replacement. Once during Thanksgiving, she walked into the den while Diane showed guests framed vacation photos from a recent trip. "There's the kids," Diane said proudly. "The kids." Claire stood beside the bookshelf, unnoticed for several seconds, before someone handed her a drink. On the drive home, she cried unexpectedly hard at a red light, then felt embarrassed immediately afterward. Maybe this was normal. Maybe parents remarried and old lives compressed naturally around the new ones. Maybe she was refusing to evolve, so she stopped mentioning anything. Months passed that way. Then her father collapsed at work. Not dramatic, not fatal. Chest pain, dizziness, overnight observation at the hospital. But serious enough that phones started ringing. Claire was in a meeting when the hospital called, then again and again. By the time she arrived, Diane was already there in the waiting area holding untouched coffee. Relief crossed her face when Claire walked in. "They keep asking for you," Diane said quietly. A nurse appeared moments later. "Claire Bennett?" She stood automatically. "We need authorization regarding medication history and insurance verification." The nurse spoke to her with the practical certainty reserved for immediate family. Claire answered questions mechanically. Date of birth, allergies, previous procedures. Behind her, Diane sat very still, not excluded exactly, but secondary. Later, an administrator approached with additional paperwork. "We also found you listed as primary emergency contact on his employment documents." Claire nodded slowly. Of course she was. Some part of her father's life still remembered who she had been before the walls changed. When he finally woke fully the next morning, he looked exhausted and strangely unsettled. His eyes moved from Diane to Claire and lingered there. Not guilt exactly, recognition. Weeks later, after he returned home, he asked if he could visit her apartment. He arrived carrying grocery store flowers that looked chosen in a hurry. Inside, he wandered quietly while she made coffee. Her apartment walls were cluttered with photographs, cheap frames, crooked angles. Claire at 12 missing her front teeth, her father asleep in a beach chair, her mother laughing with her head thrown backward years before the divorce hollowed everything out. He stopped in front of one picture for a long time. "You kept all these," he said softly. Claire leaned against the counter. Someone should. The room fell silent. He nodded once, staring at the photograph instead of her. "I didn't realize," he said eventually, "how it looked." Claire almost answered immediately, but the truthful response felt too large for the moment. "You didn't realize because it wasn't happening to you." Instead, she handed him coffee. A month later, she visited the house again. Nothing dramatic had changed, but near the hallway staircase hung a small framed photo of her college graduation. Another sat near the bookshelf in the den. Not centered, not highlighted, just present. Claire paused in front of them longer than necessary. From the kitchen, her father called, "Dinner's ready." She took a breath and walked toward his voice. The house still felt different, but no longer like a place pretending she had never lived there.